What's up, guys? February 13th. This is episode 2, What It Do Q, and we got a lot to talk about today. A lot of news happened this past week. It's kind of crazy in both the production world and in the, I'd say, music slash DJ world. First up, Ableton just teased their next update. I believe it's 10.1 or 10.2. And you can currently grab the beta right now at ableton.com. You can sign up. And there's a lot of useful improvements. I had to note everything down on a list because it's quite a bit. I'm going to just go over some of the major ones and stuff that I'm excited for. I've been tinkering with the beta for the past couple of days. And if you saw my story on Instagram, there's just little updates that really got me super excited. That I feel like Ableton, they took a long time to kind of catch up with some of the features that other DAWs had. And granted, Ableton is a strong DAW. I love Ableton. I use Ableton 100% when I'm doing my remix and producing. And so there were little updates that I'm just stoked about. So first up, which I don't use, but I am interested in diving into, the wavetable synth. You can now import your own wavetables or samples for sound design. So kind of taking a page from Serum. And Serum is definitely a different beast, as is Wavetable. So I'll be curious to kind of dive into Wavetable and see kind of what I can create out of that. But I hear a lot of positive remarks in regards to Wavetable, so definitely check that synth out. And that's pretty exciting, the fact that you can import your own samples and wavetables to really kind of sculpt and create your own sounds. The other thing that they rolled out with is a channel EQ, a new channel EQ that is more musical. I think of it along the lines of like a Pultec EQ or certain analog EQs that the best way to describe it is they have their own distinct sound. And so Ableton rolled out a new plugin called Channel EQ. There's a certain characteristic to this EQ. I haven't dived into that yet, but reading comments on the Channel EQ in regards to the beta, that's really what Ableton was going for with rolling out the channel EQ. I have played with this. They upgraded their delay where they merged the simple delay and the ping pong delay together into one device, which is kind of cool because you can really come up with some interesting delays. And now you're not really deciding, okay, well, do I need to use a simple delay or a ping pong delay in my track? It's kind of a jack of all trades now in regards to a delay, so that's really dope. I do love this. I'm really big on automation when I'm doing remixing, I'm producing, and they really took their automation to the next level. So the big thing with automation in the next version of Ableton, you can actually not only dial in automation points. So for example, before, when you were selecting automation on the timeline, you would have to click on the node and move the node up and down, and you couldn't always get accurate with the node. The cool thing now is you can actually edit the value of the node. So, for example, if you have automation where you want the volume to drop at, let's say like -10 dB, and you want it to match another point where at the end you want it to raise specifically, like say up to -7 dB, you can actually right click, edit the value, and type in 7 dB versus dragging the node to kind of ballpark get it on 7 dB, which typically you can always nail what you're kind of dragging to, but it takes a little bit of work to really get there versus now it's just a right click and you type in the value that you want. So that's really dope. The other thing is that there's automation curves now. So there's different curves available to you when you're in the automation lane in Ableton. So for example, S curves or sort of a rise or like a triangle curve, and you can right click. So based on the number of bars that you have, you can highlight, right click, and say select an S curve, and it'll automatically add an S curve automation. So a really cool, kind of a time saver. I use a lot of automation, for example, like say if I'm automating pitch or filters. And so it's just really cool little improvements that I can see useful in really dialing down and really speeding up your workflow. So the other thing that they added in regards to the arrangement is zooming and scrolling. So there's new shortcuts that allow you to get a quick overview of your entire arrangement and also focus in to specific portions of your arrangement, which the new shortcuts are H and W. So I forget which corresponds to what. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm running footage on kind of what these updates look like. But basically, yeah, you can really quickly, using the new shortcuts, really get an overview of the entire project versus zooming out like before with the plus and minus key, or drilling into a specific point on your timeline in the arrangement view. So just really basic kind of shortcut improvements when zooming in and out of the arrangement view in Ableton. So that's really dope. The one big thing that people have been asking for forever, as have I, is you can freeze your sidechain now. So before, when you ran a sidechain in Ableton, you couldn't freeze the track. It wouldn't allow you to freeze the track. So now, when you do sidechain with Ableton's compressor, or any sidechain rather, you can freeze the track. Some of the, which I haven't run into, but I've been following the forum, and some of the questions were, well, if you froze the track and say you changed the sidechain, how would it affect the track? And from there, you would need to unfreeze and freeze the sidechain again. But it's really dope because there'll be times like, for example, where I'll hit a bottleneck on my CPU. Not so much with the new Mac Mini, but like say if on my laptop, and I need to freeze tracks. Well, I don't have to worry if things are sidechained now, because before my workflow was, if I needed to freeze tracks that were sidechained, I would group the tracks that would have the same sidechain and then freeze the tracks below it, since the sidechain would be applied on the group. And you don't have to do that anymore. So that's super dope. Thank you, Ableton, for that. The other big thing that I ran into that was mentioned nowhere, and I pretty much like lost it when I found this out, is they make sidechaining so much easier in Ableton. And I know a lot of other DAWs have had this, but Ableton finally implemented it. So for example, in FabFilter, the Pro Q, I'm not sure, I know in the 2 and the 3 you can do this. I'm not sure about the 1. I believe you can, but you can actually send a sidechain to visually see your kick within the Pro Q. And before, you would have to route through Ableton's mixer to, send your kick to do the sidechain and all that. Well, now on the plugin itself, if the plugin supports sidechain, so it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there's a bunch of different plugins where you have external sidechain built in to be able to take a sidechain input for whatever reason. Well, now in the plugin, you'll see sidechain, and from there you can drop down and select, for example, my kick, and then I can adjust the gain. Well, how much of the kick do I want to bring into the sidechain? And it's such a time saver that I never realized I wanted until I started using it. Like, I've already knocked out 2 remixes where it's just saved so much time to be able to just click a sidechain versus having to create a group, because that's the other thing. I would create a group since I would need to freeze a lot of these tracks occasionally. And so out of habit, I would just create a group, apply the sidechain to the group just to save resources, and I'd be done. Well, yeah, it's just, it saves me a lot of time, especially if I'm just doing like quick checks where I need to do a sidechain for, like, say, the EQ, or for example, on the a lot of the SSL plugins like the UAD SSL compressor, you can actually bring in a sidechain and adjust the sidechain so the compressor hits a certain way. Things like that. So it's a huge time saver, and I'm stoked that Ableton finally did that. The last thing that they rolled out with their latest update is VST3 support. I honestly don't use VST3s. I know this is something that folks have wanted for a long time. So that's dope that they implemented it. I honestly don't know the benefits with using VST3s versus typical VSTs, or since I'm on a Mac, I deal with audio units. So yeah, I mean, overall, just great updates that Ableton rolled out with. So typically, I like to live on the edge and try these betas. I know when Ableton switched over from 9 to 10, the beta was really solid, and I can tell you right now, the beta is really solid. I haven't run into any crashes. Surprisingly, the one crash that I ran into was opening a project in the non-beta version of 10, but it turned out to be I needed to update one of my plugins that I hadn't updated in a while. So yeah, the beta's been great. That tells me they should have the final release of this update pretty soon, I'm hoping, because I mean, it feels like it's ready. So yeah, great job, Ableton. If you're an Ableton user, definitely check out the beta. So now, the next big, which actually just was announced today, Beatsource. So Beatsource is 11 years ago, Beatport attempted to kind of, I don't want to say infiltrate, I don't know if that's the right word, but essentially they saw the hip hop market and they wanted to find a way to be a part of the hip hop market in selling music. Beatport has always been known as being electronic music, dance house, you name it, anything electronic. That's where you would go. You would go to Beatport, and that's where you'll buy your music. But there was a need to kind of fill the hip hop gap within Beatport, so they tried launching Beatsource 11 years ago. And I got to thank DJ Tech Tools for that, because I completely forgot that they even did that. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but yeah, it was kind of crazy that it was over 11 years ago that they did that. Well, they're relaunching it, and they're teaming up with DJ City. And so what they're calling it is basically a uniting kind of both not only dance music DJs, but then the open format community. So it's really the idea of an open format marketplace for DJs. And so they're looking at launching in summer of 2019. And quote, as part of the joint venture, Beatport has developed a roadmap for integrating the DJ City promo pool functionality into the Beatsource platform later in 2019. And DJ City will continue to deliver music to its existing clients as it rebrands to focus on Beatsource. So basically what that means is that there's still going to be two separate entities. So you will have Beatsource, but DJ City will still remain. And when I read this story today, the big thing that popped in my head is the idea of the major labels and remixes. So with a lot of DJ pools, aside from providing label music, aside from providing official remixes, they provide a lot of bootleg remixes. And so in my head, I'm thinking, well, it sounds like they may have come up with a solution if they're implementing the DJ City functionality into Beatsource, right? And I would think they're going to migrate a lot of that catalog over of what DJ City provides, which would also include, not only official remixes, but I would think bootleg remixes. So I see this as, and who knows how this venture is going to play out until it actually comes out in summer. But in my head, I'm very, very hopeful that the idea of bootleg remixes and copyright, because this is to me, it's a pretty big deal, because labels typically have seen, sites such as like Apple Music and Spotify as really like the two, and Tidal as well, as the three major digital distributors. And within the past couple of years, I've seen Beatport implement a lot of hip hop. Like there's an actual hip hop category into their site. So that tells me, it's definitely, not to say it wasn't in the past, but, labels are paying attention. And my hope is that then there may be another outlet for bootleg remixes, and there might be not only an outlet, but a solution to a lot of the copyright issues that bootleg remixes face. So my hope is, with the launch of something like this, if we start seeing bootlegs on Beatsource, because DJ City is a promo pool, just like a lot of the other promo pools, that they cater to the working DJ, and not only do they have the official stuff, but they also have bootleg stuff as well. And if a lot of that stuff shows up on Beatsource, that tells me they figured out a way to to essentially pay the labels the correct percentage or whatever is involved in. Okay, well, we're selling this boot, or I don't know if it's, they're calling it a marketplace, but I'm not sure if they're going to be selling or if it's going to be subscription based. I know Beatport is also launching a subscription based service that's going to tie into things like Tractor, Rekordbox, and some other DVSs. But it sounds like it could work either way, especially with that venture. Like it could all be, a huge kind of just plan in regards to whether it's a subscription model or tied into the subscription model, but then also a marketplace, because, not a lot of DJs need the subscription, but they might occasionally go and buy tracks, say, every other month or whatever their needs may be. But essentially, they figured out a way to pay labels the correct percentage for remixes, and it protects not only the remixers, but it also allows them to post said remixes. And I kind of think of this as a big picture. I think of SoundCloud. It's difficult when I get asked by up-and-coming producers, where can I post my remixes? And for me, a lot of my early success came from SoundCloud, came from, blogs, but more importantly, the ease of uploading music on SoundCloud that was accessible to everyone. And a lot of that changed, obviously, with labels figuring out the copyright aspect of, okay, well, we need to figure out how to monetize these remixes. And I know SoundCloud has their Premiere and their monetization with that they've rolled out, which I know there's been different views on that. I honestly haven't looked myself in what they provide in monetizing your music, and I don't know if remixes are covered, but if they've come up with a solution, then I think that's awesome, because I would want to see this apply to anything and everything. So whether it's starting with, Beatsource, and then now you can get your music. I mean, you have, I believe it's Dubset, where there's a certain list of artists that you can remix, and you can then post your remixes on Apple Music, and the percentage is split however which way in selling your remix on Apple Music. And I think that's, to me, that's the pie in the sky hope that I have, because I want to be able to tell producers myself, yeah, you can easily, do your remix and go through Dubset or whatever label distributor that's going to distribute through, like say you go through a Labelworks, which is a music distributor, typically for labels. Well, now, okay, I'm going to sign up for music distribution. through Labelworks or say TuneCore, whatever you want to use. And now my bootleg remix is going to be sold everywhere music is sold. Beatport, Beatsource, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and streaming everywhere. And to me, that's awesome. To be able to have that outlet again would be huge, because right now it's difficult. Like, it's difficult as a new producer to get your music out there. So, I mean, who knows? I'm really excited because it is something I'm hoping like I said, the first thing that popped in my head was just like remixers. Like, how are remixers going to be affected by something like this? And so that's where I'm really excited. I'm really hoping that there's a kind of big picture, unsolicited bootleg remixes are okay again. We'll see how that plays out. So yeah, 2 big topics this week. One thing I did want to touch on a little bit, just because I wanted to be able to discuss production and all that. Not diving too deep, but one plugin that I picked up this week. So I've been working on my EP this past week, and I had tinkered with Output's Arcade. So what Arcade is a loop synthesizer. So kind of think of it as a splice, but it's integrated within your DAW. But the thing with Output is that you can actually play these loops, and it's not only loops, but there's also like one shots. So initially in the beginning, they launched, I think in June, they launched sometime last year. And so I tried, like, they were really pushing for this. If you haven't used Output, like, they have great products. I mean, I use a lot of their stuff. Like, their analog strings is dope. They have like a brass synth as well. That's like really dope. They have a lot of like really dope, very creative products. And so this is kind of like their splice, but within the DAW. But the big thing is that they add sounds every week. And so I tried it during the initial stages when they launched, and they were really pushing it. Like, I think when you signed up, you got like 30 days or maybe even longer to demo this, like with no charge. And it didn't really work for me, but it was cool. It was interesting, but it was something that I didn't find myself going into a lot. So I recently decided, because they rolled out some updates, to dive back in. And the biggest thing that they did integrate is you can drop your own loops, you can drop your own samples, and you can play them relative to the pitch in your song. So for example, when you load this plugin, you select the key of what your song is in. So for example, one of the songs that I'm producing is in B minor. So you select B minor, but when you would play the loop, well, the loop might be played a certain way that might not, granted it's in the key, but it's not playing to what I've written in my song. Well, now you can hold the loop and play the pitch of the loop to whatever melody or chords that you've written in your song. So you have more options to really customize the loop in your song. And then the other cool thing that I played with that I really liked also was just dropping your own samples in, because there's a lot of like creative, like glitchy effects also that's built into Output. So you can drop your own loops, drop your own samples, and then mess with that. So it's a really cool creative tool. It's $10 a month. I'm not sponsored by them at all, but if you want to check it out, it's a 14-day free trial. I've enjoyed it so far, and it's one of those things that you can dip in and out of when you need it. So I know a lot of plugins are really going the subscription route, like the other plugin, or rather group of plugins that I use are Rolling Cloud, and that's like $14 a month. But yeah, they have a lot of like the classic Roland synths. They're constantly updating it. That's another big one that I recommend, especially if you're going like, I produce a lot of disco, a lot of funk, especially if you're producing a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of like the old like classic synths in there, like the Jupiter, the JX3P. I mean, you have the TR-808 and 909. Yeah, really dope stuff. So definitely check that out. But yeah, that's everything that I have for this week. Yeah, I mean, a lot of like dope news. Like I said, Ableton, great update, and Beatsource, man, we'll see how that plays out. But I'm really excited, yeah, for the future of just distribution and remixers. This could be the next big thing. So until next time, catch you guys later. Peace.